There are moments in the life of a great football club that define not just a sporting decision, but an era, crossroads where tradition, emotion, and strategy all converge. For Real Madrid, a club that measures its history not in seasons but in legacies, this is one of those moments. Behind the pristine walls of Valdebebas, in meeting rooms where trophies line the shelves and where decisions are made with both precision and sentiment, the club's leadership faces a question that feels as human as it is sporting. What should be done with David Alaba, the Austrian defender, the quiet leader, the man whose calm has anchored chaos more than once? Alaba's story is one that embodies professionalism and elegance, both on and off the pitch. Since joining Real Madrid in the summer of 2021, after a decade of dominance at Bayern Munich, he has stood as one of the rare players capable of transforming a backline not just with his defending, but with his intelligence, his voice, and his grace. A transfer born of faith and vision. When Real Madrid announced the free signing of Alaba, many saw it as a masterstroke. After losing both Sergio Ramos and Rafael Varane in the same summer, the club needed more than just a good defender. It needed an anchor, a voice, a presence. Alaba arrived as all of that and more. He didn't need to shout to lead. He led through understanding, through composure, through the kind of authority that doesn't demand respect but earns it. His debut season under Carlo Ancelotti was a portrait in adaptation, not a moment of hesitation, not a day of acclimatization. It was as if he had always been meant to wear white. From the first match, he brought structure where there had been uncertainty. His partnership with Eder Militao grew into a defensive symphony, one part Brazilian fire, one part Austrian calm. When the club lifted La Liga and the Champions League in 2022, it was impossible to overlook Alaba's fingerprints all over that success. The image that would come to define him that season was not one of tackles or clearances, but of joy. Alaba sprinting across the pitch with a folding chair in his hands after the epic comeback against Paris Saint-Germain, a spontaneous, light-hearted act that became a viral symbol of Madridismo. It showed who he truly was, competitive, joyful, and profoundly human. The weight of the shirt, worn with ease. To wear Real Madrid's shirt is to carry both privilege and burden. The badge glows heavy with the weight of expectations, the echo of Di Stefano, the memory of Raul, the presence of Benzema, Ramos, Modric, Kroos. And yet, from his very first day, Alaba wore it as if it were part of him. He spoke little, smiled often, trained relentlessly. His professionalism impressed not only Ancelotti but also his teammates. Young players saw in him the model of how to behave. Veterans saw in him a peer, someone who understood that being a Madrid player is not just about winning, but about how you win. Inside the locker room, Alaba became what Spanish players call a capitán silencioso, a silent captain. His influence didn't come through speeches or gestures, but through tone, posture, and reliability. Whenever the team faced pressure, he was the first to calm things down, to bring clarity with a simple pass or a reassuring look. "He doesn't need to talk much," said one teammate in an interview after the 2022 final in Paris. "You feel his presence. You just know everything is under control when he's there." The turning of the clock. But football, like life, moves in cycles. The same player who once seemed tireless now faces the realities that time and wear impose on every athlete. Now 33, Alaba stands at a crossroads. His body, so finely tuned, so reliable for over a decade, has begun to rebel. Recurrent muscle injuries, knee discomfort, and longer recovery periods have started to dictate his rhythm. Matches once routine have become obstacles to navigate carefully. No one questions his commitment. If anything, his professionalism has deepened. Yet the numbers tell a story that the heart resists. In the past 2 seasons, he has featured in barely half of Madrid's competitive matches. For a club that competes on 4 fronts every year, continuity is not a luxury, it is a necessity. The Real Madrid medical staff has worked meticulously to manage his workload, and Ancelotti has rotated him with care. But even the most patient management cannot turn back time. The modern game, played at breakneck pace and relentless intensity, demands physical consistency above all else. A logical decision, wrapped in emotion. In June, Alaba's contract will expire. And though there is immense affection for him within the club, the current consensus in the sporting department is clear. There will be no renewal. It's not a decision made with coldness, but with logic, the kind of logic that has sustained Madrid's competitiveness for decades. The club needs salary flexibility to pursue younger reinforcements, particularly in defense and midfield. Keeping a veteran player on one of the squad's higher wages, without the guarantee of regular availability, no longer fits the project's balance. Florentino Perez and José Ángel Sánchez, both deeply respectful of Alaba, have handled the issue with utmost delicacy. They know what he has given. They know what he represents. But they also know what is coming next, a generational shift already embodied by players like Aurélien Tchouaméni, Antonio Rudiger, and Eder Militão, all of whom will shape Madrid's defensive identity in the years to come. Alaba's own reflections. For his part, Alaba understands. He has always been self-aware, pragmatic but proud. He doesn't want a farewell steeped in pity, nor does he wish to linger as a symbolic figure without function. He wants to play, to feel important, to compete every weekend, to sweat for points, to lead on the field rather than from the sidelines. And so, as his Madrid chapter nears its conclusion, a new horizon begins to open. Several clubs have already expressed interest. Fenerbahce, one of Turkey's most ambitious and historic teams, sees in him the perfect leader to mentor a younger squad. In Italy, teams in Serie A admire his tactical understanding and positional discipline, qualities that fit their footballing culture perfectly. There have even been quiet whispers about a potential return to Bayern Munich, though the emotional symmetry may not align with the club's current direction. Wherever he goes next, it will be a new adventure, not a retreat. Alaba is not a player who fades away, he reinvents himself. The club's vision, renewal without forgetting. For Real Madrid's leadership, the decision to part ways is part of a broader vision, a long-term blueprint that has allowed the club to remain at the top even as other giants have stumbled. Madrid does not cling to sentimentality, it transforms it into legacy. This is the same institution that let icons like Casillas, Ramos, Marcelo, and Benzema go, often to the dismay of fans, but always with a sense of respect and inevitability. In each case, the club moved forward, evolving without erasing the past. Letting go of Alaba is no different. It's not about what he can no longer do, but about what Real Madrid must do next. The team's defensive core for the coming years, Rudiger, Militão, and potentially a new signing, needs space to grow and consistency to develop chemistry. Beyond the tactical, it's also a matter of culture. The club wants to maintain a dynamic, hungry dressing room, one that balances experience with youth, maturity with ambition. A fanbase between nostalgia and reason. Among the Madridistas, the reaction is one of respectful sadness. Few players have integrated as seamlessly or represented the club's values as clearly in such a short time. There are fans who hope he stays, even as a rotational figure, someone who can guide the next generation, a mentor whose wisdom outweighs his physical decline. Others, more pragmatic, argue that it's time to let go, to allow space for the constant regeneration that keeps Madrid fresh. Both perspectives share a common thread: gratitude. Gratitude for the professionalism, for the leadership, for the grace under pressure. Gratitude for a player who never sought headlines, who never complained, who simply did his job with quiet excellence. Inside the locker room. Within the team, the sentiment mirrors that of the fans. Teammates admire him deeply. Luka Modric and Toni Kroos, two of the dressing room's elder statesmen, often praise his mentality. Youngsters like Camavinga and Valverde speak of how approachable and generous he is with advice. One anecdote stands out. In the 2023 Champions League campaign, after Alaba suffered yet another muscle setback, he insisted on traveling with the team for away matches, helping analyze opposition forwards and guiding younger defenders from the sidelines. "He was injured, but he was still coaching us," said one teammate. That's Alaba, always there, always helping. That quiet leadership is something Real Madrid will miss. In a dressing room filled with personalities and stars, his calm was a stabilizing force. The broader symbolism. David Alaba's story at Real Madrid is not just about football. It's about how a player can embody a club's essence without needing to be its biggest star. He was never the loudest, never the flashiest, but he was always reliable, disciplined, and composed, traits that, in the Madrid universe, are often what separate great players from legends. He arrived in the aftermath of a defensive void, a moment when many doubted whether Madrid could rebuild quickly after losing Ramos and Varane. He helped prove that greatness doesn't always come from replacement, but from reinvention. He became, in many ways, a bridge between two generations, the old guard that conquered Europe multiple times and the young blood now poised to define the next decade. The philosophy of Real Madrid: evolution as tradition. Real Madrid's enduring success lies in its paradox, a club built on tradition that survives precisely because it embraces evolution. Every few years, the institution faces a painful yet necessary truth, that even legends must one day make way for the future. This is not coldness, it's discipline. It's what allows the club to remain both romantic and ruthless, sentimental yet strategic. From Di Stefano to Cristiano Ronaldo, from Casillas to Benzema, the story has repeated itself. Farewells that hurt, but that ultimately strengthen the collective. Alaba's upcoming departure fits perfectly into this lineage. He will not leave as a player discarded, but as one completed, a professional who fulfilled his purpose, who arrived at a time of need and restored balance. A legacy beyond trophies. How, then, will David Alaba be remembered in Madrid? Not just for the silverware, though he has plenty: La Liga, Champions League, Supercopa, UEFA Super Cup, Club World Cup. But for his demeanor. For the way he carried himself. For being the calm after the storm, the smile after the struggle, the composure in the chaos. He will be remembered for that chair celebration, yes, but also for every gesture of reassurance, for every tactical adjustment shouted in perfect Spanish, for every young player he encouraged. And perhaps most of all, for proving that leadership doesn't always roar. Sometimes, it simply stands tall, looks others in the eye, and brings calm when the world trembles. The final chapter. As June approaches, Alaba will continue to train, to give everything he can to the club he calls family. There will be no drama, no public dispute, no bitterness. Just gratitude, mutual, profound, and enduring. When the time comes for his farewell, it will likely be modest, sincere, and deeply felt. The fans will rise to their feet, applauding a man who never pretended to be a legend but became one anyway, not through goals or records, but through professionalism and heart. Real Madrid will move forward, as it always does, guided by the same blend of history and hunger that defines its DNA. And Alaba will move forward too, perhaps to new colors, new teammates, new challenges, carrying with him the lessons, memories, and pride of having worn the most demanding shirt in football. Because in the end, football careers, like stories, are defined not by how they end, but by how they are lived. And David Alaba's story at Real Madrid has been lived with dignity, excellence, and class, the perfect reflection of what Madridismo, at its best, truly means. Epilogue. The eternal calm. The Bernabéu has seen countless heroes, some fiery, some flamboyant, some almost mythic. But few have embodied serenity the way David Alaba has. He came quietly. He conquered quietly. And, in all likelihood, he will leave quietly, but never forgotten. Because sometimes, the loudest kind of leadership is silence. Football, like time itself, moves in cycles. The golden age of one generation inevitably gives way to the hopeful dawn of the next. And at Real Madrid, a club that has learned to live between glory and reinvention, that eternal rhythm feels more alive than ever. As the last chapters of Luka Modric and Toni Kroos begin to fade into legend, a new story is being written elsewhere in Europe, one that may soon return home. Among the rising names that captivate scouts, analysts, and fans alike, Nico stands out not only for his ability but for the narrative that surrounds him. A story of patience, of ambition, and of calculated rebellion. A story that begins in the familiar training grounds of Valdebebas and now, thousands of kilometers away, unfolds under the passionate skies of Italy. A star forged abroad. At just 21 years old, Nico has already lived a footballing journey that many veterans would envy. Once a precocious talent in Real Madrid's youth ranks, he made the bold decision to leave the comfort of the Spanish capital in search of what every young footballer truly craves: minutes, responsibility, and the freedom to grow. His destination was the Serie A league renowned for its tactical complexity and unforgiving pace. For some, Italy has been a graveyard of promising careers. For Nico, it became a crucible, a place where he learned not only to survive but to lead. Over 2 seasons, the young playmaker transformed himself from an exciting academy prospect into one of the most compelling young midfielders in Europe. 6 goals, 9 assists, and a consistent influence over his team's attacking rhythm only begin to tell the story. What truly sets him apart is not what the numbers show, but what happens between them. His ability to dictate tempo, to find space where none exists, and to play with a serenity that feels far beyond his years. Observers in Italy have called him un giovane con l'anima di un veterano, a young man with the soul of a veteran. It's an apt description. Doesn't just play football, he interprets it. Whether under pressure or in open space, his decisions seem deliberate, almost prophetic. There's an elegance in his control, a purpose in every movement. From Valdebebas to Verona, the road less traveled. Nico's decision to leave Madrid was not an act of rebellion, but of faith in his own development. Those close to him recall that he never sought to escape the club that formed him. Instead, he wanted to earn his way back, to prove himself away from the protective walls of one of the most demanding institutions in world football. In Italy, he found what he was looking for, a league that forced him to think faster, move smarter, and grow thicker skin. The physical duels, the tight defenses, the relentless scrutiny of the press, all of it shaped him into a more complete, more mature player. And while he was perfecting his craft abroad, Real Madrid never truly lost sight of him. The club's sporting department, led by its ever-meticulous scouts and data analysts, kept detailed reports on his performances, tracking his progression match by match. Quietly, but consistently, his name reappeared in internal conversations, the kind reserved for players who are not just good, but Madrid good. The Xabi-Alonso connection. When Xabi Alonso took the reins of the first team, the connection to Nico Paz gained new depth. The two already shared a past. Alonso had coached the young Argentine-Spanish midfielder during his formative years in Madrid's youth system. He knew his temperament, his technical profile, and, above all, his character. Sources close to the coaching staff suggest that Alonso has long admired Nico's mix of intelligence and bravery. He doesn't hide, Xabi is said to have told his assistants. He wants the ball when others don't. In Alonso's evolving tactical vision, a synthesis of positional play and vertical transitions, Paz fits perfectly. His ability to operate between lines, to drift wide or drop deep, to act as both playmaker and disruptor, makes him an archetype of the modern midfielder. In Alonso's mind, he is not just another prospect. He is potentially a key component of Madrid's future midfield engine. A masterstroke in foresight, the buyback clause. Few clubs in the world plan as far ahead as Real Madrid. When Nico Paz left the club, the transfer included a buyback clause, a small detail at the time that now feels prophetic. Many saw it as a gesture of courtesy, a safety net, just in case. Today, that clause has turned into a strategic weapon. It allows Madrid to bring back Paz at a fraction of his current market value, a stunning advantage considering the numbers being whispered across Europe. Reports in England suggest that clubs like Tottenham Hotspur and RB Leipzig have floated offers in the region of €70 million for the young midfielder. Yet Madrid, thanks to their foresight, can bring him home for a sum closer to €20 million. Inside the club, the debate is not if they should trigger it, but when. The perfect fit for a new Madrid. Madrid's long-term project is clear: build the future without sacrificing the identity. The departures of Modric and Kroos will mark the end of an era defined by elegance and control. But the next chapter is not about imitation, it's about evolution. With players like Bellingham, Camavinga, Valverde, and Tchouaméni, the new midfield core is more vertical, athletic, and dynamic. In that mix, Nico Paz offers something unique: creativity, pause, and imagination. He is the kind of player who slows down chaos, who can read a game's emotional rhythm and change it with a single touch. In a team full of runners and powerhouses, he brings artistry. From a tactical perspective, his versatility is invaluable. He can play as an interior in a 4-3-3, as a second striker in a 4-2-3-1, or even drift wide as an inverted playmaker. His understanding of space, honed in Italy's tactical laboratories, allows him to complement Alonso's hybrid system perfectly. Economically, the operation makes sense. Sporting-wise, it's inspiring. Emotionally, it's cinematic. A homecoming written in the stars. Imagine the scene. A crisp autumn evening at the Santiago Bernabéu. The crowd rises as a familiar figure steps onto the pitch. The scoreboard reads his name, Nico Paz, returning not as a youth prospect, but as a fully formed professional. The murmurs turn to applause, then to a roar. For the first time in years, one of their own, born in the academy, tested abroad, refined by experience, returns to claim his place. It's the kind of story football romanticizes but rarely delivers. A story of departure and return, of growth and redemption. Because in truth, Real Madrid doesn't just sign players. It tells stories, of greatness, of identity, of continuity. Nico Paz's potential comeback would symbolize all of that. The symbolism of the return. Beyond tactics and transfer clauses, the significance of Nico's return would be deeply cultural. For years, Madrid's philosophy has balanced between two forces: the pursuit of Galactico excellence and the cultivation of homegrown talent. The arrival of players like Vinicius, Rodrigo, and Bellingham reflects the first. The rise of figures like Valverde, Fran Garcia, and now Nico Paz reflects the second. Bringing him back would be a statement that the club's heart still beats in Valdebebas. That for all its global power, Real Madrid still believes in the magic of a homegrown talent wearing the crest with pride. The next chapter. For Nico Paz, the story is far from over. His time in Italy has transformed him, but Madrid remains the dream, the unfinished chapter. Those who know him describe him as humble, grounded, and obsessive about improvement. He studies matches, rewatches his mistakes, and constantly seeks to refine the details that separate good players from great ones. And so, as the club prepares for another summer of strategic moves, his name will once again rise in the meeting rooms of the Santiago Bernabéu. Because the idea of Nico Paz returning home is not just a sentimental vision, it's a footballing plan rooted in logic, emotion, and timing. A cycle that began years ago in the academy could soon come full circle. Epilogue. The future is homegrown. If the move happens, it will not merely be a transfer. It will be a symbol of Real Madrid's evolution, of the eternal balance between legacy and renewal. In the elegance of his play and the quiet determination of his journey, Nico Paz embodies the very essence of what the next generation of Madridistas must be: global in skill, local in soul. As Modric and Kroos pass the torch, perhaps it will be Nico, the boy who left to grow, who lights the next flame. Because at Real Madrid, the story never ends. It simply changes faces, carrying the same dream forward. And in that endless cycle of endings and beginnings, one truth remains constant. The white shirt always finds its next genius. It begins, as all great football stories do, with a whisper. A rumor floating through the marble halls of the Santiago Bernabéu, murmured by fans in cafes, speculated on late-night talk shows, dissected by analysts with tired eyes and excited voices. A rumor that grows louder with every passing day until it becomes something more, a premonition. And this time, all signs point to one name: Rafael Leão. The Portuguese winger, the electric force of AC Milan, has become the latest obsession of Real Madrid, a club that has never stopped dreaming, never stopped building, and never stopped redefining what greatness looks like. For weeks, perhaps months, Madrid scouts have followed Leão's every move, every acceleration, every feint, every unpredictable turn that leaves defenders lost in the blur of his stride. The reports arriving at Valdebebas read like love letters: unstoppable in open space. Elite dribbler. Carries the ball like it's a weapon. Plays with fire. They all end with the same conclusion: Rafael Leão is built for Real Madrid. The anatomy of a modern star. At 25, Leão is no longer a rising prospect. He is a phenomenon in full bloom. A left-footed attacker with a rare combination of grace and chaos, strength and imagination, he's been the beating heart of Milan's attack for several seasons. His game defies labels: part winger, part striker, part artist. When Leão receives the ball near the touchline, stadiums hold their breath. He glides, not runs. He doesn't sprint so much as levitate through defenders. Italian crowds have learned to fear that pause, that half-second when he leans slightly forward, measuring his prey. Then, with an effortless burst, he's gone. In Serie A, they call him Il Vento di Lisbona, the Lisbon wind. You can't see it coming, but you feel its force. Since arriving in Milan, Leão has not only matured as a player but also as a personality. His early inconsistency has given way to confidence. He is no longer the prodigy learning his craft. He is the reference point, the one teammates look to when the game turns tense. And yet, despite his success in Italy, whispers of destiny have always linked him to the Bernabéu. His idol growing up? Cristiano Ronaldo. His dream, often repeated in interviews? To wear the white shirt of Real Madrid. A dream in white. For Real Madrid, Leão represents more than just a signing. He represents a statement of intent. Florentino Perez and the Madrid hierarchy understand that modern football has evolved beyond formations and possession statistics. Today's game demands chaos creators, players who can break the order, who can turn structure into opportunity. And Leão, with his terrifying combination of pace, dribbling, and fearlessness, is precisely that. Inside Valdebebas, the technical staff see Leão as a strategic cornerstone for the club's next evolution. His arrival could serve multiple purposes: a natural heir to Rodrigo if Premier League giants come calling, or an explosive partner for Vinicius Jr., two Brazilian-Portuguese dynamos stretching defenses to the breaking point. Imagine the scene. Vinicius on the right, Leão on the left, Bellingham ghosting between the lines, Camavinga charging from deep. A Bernabéu under the lights, vibrating with energy, as opposing fullbacks glance nervously at one another, knowing there's no escape. This isn't fantasy. It's the kind of dream Real Madrid has made real countless times before. The Xabi Alonso factor. Xabi Alonso, calm yet ambitious, has reportedly been thrilled by the idea. He sees in Leão a player who embodies everything he wants from his team: versatility, intensity, and unpredictability. Alonso's football is about control through aggression, beauty through balance. Leão fits like a piece designed for that puzzle. His ability to interchange positions, to press intelligently, and to accelerate transitions could turn Madrid's attack into one of the most dynamic in Europe. Football today is decided in the moments of chaos, Alonso once said in an interview. You don't win by being safe, you win by being brave. Leão, in that sense, isn't just brave. He's fearless. The business of dreams. Of course, at Real Madrid, even dreams have a price tag. Negotiations with AC Milan are said to be in an advanced stage. The Italian club, proud and protective, does not want to lose its star. But every transfer saga has its rhythm, and when a player's heart starts beating for Madrid, resistance becomes difficult. Figures around €80 million have been whispered, a hefty sum, but one that the Spanish giants are reportedly looking to balance with structured payments and performance-based variables. For context, it's less than what Chelsea paid for Enzo Fernandez, or what United offered for Antony. For Madrid, it would be a calculated investment, not only in talent but in image, in emotion, in the club's eternal narrative of reinvention. Because Real Madrid doesn't just sign players. It signs moments. And Leão, with his smile, swagger, and showmanship, is a moment waiting to happen. Chemistry in the making. Inside the locker room, the potential arrival of Leão is already a source of excitement. Vinicius and Camavinga know him well from international circuits, tournaments, and off-field events. They've shared laughs, admiration, and mutual respect. To them, Leão is not just an opponent, he's a kindred spirit. A player who, like them, plays with joy. Those who've worked with Leão describe him as light-hearted yet fiercely disciplined. He trains with headphones on, music always playing, rhythm guiding his movement. Off the pitch, he writes rap lyrics, sketches designs, lives life through art. On it, he channels that creativity into football's purest expression: freedom. That balance, between discipline and imagination, is what makes him ideal for Madrid's current ecosystem. A young, international locker room built on camaraderie, ambition, and self-expression. The grand rebuild. The Real Madrid of today is in the midst of transformation. With veterans like Toni Kroos and David Alaba nearing the twilight of their careers, a new wave is already emerging. Bellingham, Camavinga, Tchouaméni, Valverde, Vinicius, and now, potentially, Rafael Leão. It's not just a rebuild. It's a reimagining. The arrival of Nico from the youth ranks has already injected a spark of creativity into the system. Add Leão's dynamism, and Madrid would be shaping a squad capable of dominating the next decade, not just through trophies, but through style. Because Real Madrid doesn't aspire only to be the best team in Europe. It aspires to be the most magnetic, the most desired, the most unforgettable. Legacy and destiny. Some transfers define eras. Zidane in 2001. Cristiano in 2009. Modric in 2012. Each was more than a footballing decision. It was a symbol of transition, a bridge between generations. Leão could be that bridge now. He represents not only youth and ambition but a modern form of artistry that Madrid has always cherished. Like Di Stefano, Figo, or Benzema before him, he could become the new heartbeat of a side built to mesmerize. And perhaps that's what makes this story so compelling. It's not just about goals or assists. It's about energy, about aura, about a player who looks destined to dance under the Bernabéu lights. A storm on the horizon. Winter is approaching, and in Madrid, the atmosphere is electric. Reporters gather near Valdebebas, eyes scanning for hints. Fans flood social media, tracking private jets, reading between the lines of cryptic posts. Something big is coming. Everyone feels it. And if history has taught us anything, it's that when Real Madrid moves silently, it's usually because it's preparing something monumental. Rafael Leão could be that monument, the new face of an era built on youth, velocity, and brilliance. A symbol of how the world's most successful club keeps reinventing itself while staying faithful to its soul. The Bernabéu is ready. The fans are ready. And somewhere in Milan, a Portuguese winger might already be dreaming of what it will sound like when 80,000 voices roar his name. The future is white. And with Rafael Leão and Nico, that future doesn't just shine, it blazes.